Hey everybody, KC here. So I was just listening to one of my favorite podcasts. It's called The Inevitable, and it's from Motor Trend magazine. And they talk a lot about a lot of different kinds of interviews with really interesting people, talking about the future of mobility with a real focus on electric cars. And I thought it was interesting. The guy they were interviewing was a guy named Jon Ikeda, who is the chief brand officer at Acura. And they were talking a lot about the range anxiety with electric cars. And the point that Jon Ikeda made, I thought was so interesting. He said, range anxiety is not a new thing. It's been around since the beginning of the 20th century. Because when you think about it, at the time when people started to buy cars, right, there were no gas stations, there were no highways, right? It was really, really hard to find a gas station to fuel up your car. People who had horses, on the other hand, all they needed was, a little grass, a little bit of water, and they go for forever. And so it was, they didn't call it range anxiety, but it was basically range anxiety all the same. And the point he was making is that things are ramping up so quickly in terms of electrification of the automobile by every manufacturer. And by the way, retailers who are then stepping up to be able to provide charging stations, that it's going to happen much faster than we think. It's funny, I've thought about the idea that California and a couple of other states have said, okay, we're not going to sell any new internal combustion engine driven cars after, I think it's 2035. And the idea is they want to push their states towards electrification of their automobiles. And I've always thought, first of all, it's kind of an interesting idea, but I've also thought, I wonder if they're going to have the infrastructure in place to be able to do that. And Ikeda's position seems to be, it's really not going to be a problem. Because when you think about how fast the entire car culture in terms of gas stations, highways, things like that, how quickly that happened, it really took about 50 years. It's going to happen a lot faster now because there's a lot more brain power. There's a lot more resources, a lot more computer power. Those leaps are going to be able to be made a lot faster. I think that's really interesting. And I think it's also fascinating to me that companies like Walmart and 7-Eleven are basically betting big that this is all going to happen. And they're going to be positioned with these charging stations, networks of charging stations that are going to be available to customers and that are going to bring customers into their stores. This is the way that retailers need to think about the future. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.